Okay, Unit 9 test review. You're going to need your multiplication table, and you will need this thing to look at here. Okay, this little formula is not applied on the test. Doesn't have to be. Solve the equation. You got solve the equation. You got story problem. So we have negative 3x to the second power minus 30x equals 0. Okay. All right. So x has two answers because it's to the second. Now you got x to the second, and you've also got the x to the first. So those are two different x variables that cannot be combined, so you have to apply your factoring properties, factor properties. Okay, so you're set. You make sure you're set. Your zero's there, so you're set. Now how many terms do I have here? 1, 2. So it's two terms. Means it's a binomial. So two terms, we check the GCF, and then we see if we have a difference of perfect squares. Okay, so I make my GCF box, and then I see if I have a difference of perfect squares when I get the GCF done. Okay, now remember how to check for a GCF. You check the final term for a letter, and you do have a letter X. You check the first term for a negative, and there is a negative there. Okay, so you put a negative right in front. Now you find the GCF of your coefficients, which should be 3 and 30. Okay, so 3 and 30, those are both in row 3. So negative 3x is the GCF. So you parenthesize that, and you go up and divide by negative 3x. So negative 3 divided by negative 3 is 1. Then I divide x to the second by x. Remember, 2x's divided by an x leaves you with an x. And then I take negative 30 divided by negative 3. That's positive 10, so I write that as plus 10. And then the x divided by x cancel out the x's, so I don't want to see an x on that 10. Okay. Okay, now you can put equals 0 outside if you want. Now you put the negative 3x over here, and you cross that out. Now, can you have a difference of perfect squares if there's a plus sign? No, you can't. So you write no, and you put that 1x minus 10 right alongside your negative 3x. And now you solve it. So this is F1, this is F2. So negative 3x could equal 0, or 1x, take the 1 off the x, x plus 10 equals 0. So you got times negative 3, so it means you divide by negative 3. 0 divided by negative 3 is 0. And then minus 10, and you get negative 10. So 0 and negative 10 are the two answers. Okay, and my next problem. We have x to the second power plus 7x minus 60 equals 0. Okay, so we have two answers. We have x to the second, and we have x to the first. So again, we have to apply our factoring properties. Okay, so you make sure you're at 0, and you're set. Now how many terms you got on the other side? 1, 2, 3. So now the properties are for a trinomial. Okay, 3 terms. That's GCF in the T table. Okay, I don't see the x. There's no negative in the front. 1, 7, and 60 is just 1. So the GCF's 1. So if it's 1, it means I get rid of it. And I'm not going to have that little parentheses there to start with because it'd just be 1, which would be dumb to have. Then ABC. So you take positive 1 times negative 60, and that's negative 60. So that's got to be a mismatch in these parentheses I'm trying to create. Positive, negative. We are trying to add to whatever our B is, which is positive 7. Okay, so start dividing. 60 divided by 1 is 60. That adds to negative 59, so it's not that. 60 divided by 2 is 30. That adds to negative 28, so it's not that. 60 divided by 3 is 20. 3 plus negative 20 is negative 17, so it's not that. 60 divided by 4 is 15. 4 plus negative 15 is still too wide. so that's wide of the mark. And then you take your 60 and divide it by 5, so it's 5 and 12. Okay, 5 plus negative 12, that's going to be negative 7. If I need positive 7, I put plus 12 and then negative on the 5. Okay, now, before you throw in your parentheses, your a, x second, has a coefficient of 1. Okay? So you got your minus 5 and your plus 12. So x to the second, you rewrite that as xx. Then you apply the 1 in front of each of your x's. So 1 and 5 are only going to show up in the first row on that multiplication table. Okay? So you can divide by 1, but it's really just going to stay the same. So you have x minus 5. Okay, and here's the same thing, okay, 1x plus 12. See, you could divide by 1, but they just end up staying the same. Okay, and now we factored it, so I can get my two solutions, f1, f2. So x minus 5 could equal 0, x plus 12 could equal 0. So you're going to plus 5, x equals 5. You're going to minus 12. 0 minus 12 is negative 12. Okay. Next problem. We are not doing this problem. That would not be a factoring problem. 3x to the second power plus 29x minus 44 equals 0. Okay. So there's two answers. You have x to the second and you got your x to the first, so that's why you have to use this factoring stuff, because you have x variables that cannot be combined. So you're set, that's good. So what's on the other side? That would be 3 terms. So 3 terms would be the GCF followed by the table. Okay. So I do not have x on that last term. I don't have the negative in front. 3, 29, and 44. So it's either going to be 3. Nope, they're not here. So they would be 1. So that means it's a waste. A, B, C. So 3 times negative 44. Sorry for putting this problem on here. It's 132. Be negative. So it's another mismatch. Remember, a positive is a match, so make signs that mismatch. And you're adding to try to get to my b, which is positive 29. Okay, so start dividing. 1 and 132. If you add those, plus them together, it's negative 131. Okay, 132 divided by 2 would be 66. Positive 2, negative 66 is negative 64. That doesn't work. Okay. 3 and 44. That's still wide of the mark. Be persistent. Don't give up. So 132 divided by 4 is 433. So 4 and 33. How about that? That looks like it could be close. Negative 29, well I need positive 29, so I stop dividing, I just make this positive and this negative. Okay, so you make your parentheses, remember your A is 3 this time. Okay, so I put the minus 4 and the plus 33. And then xx, and you apply 3 coefficients in front. Now, you need to simplify these. I don't care if you get the same answer. These need to be in simplest form. 3 and 4 already are because they're just in row 1. You can divide by 1. They'll just stay the same. Okay, now the second one needs to be simplified. I mean, you have 3, and here's 33, so you would divide those both by 3. That becomes 1x plus 11. Take the 1 off the x. You don't need that there. So it'd be x plus 11. Okay, and now you have your two factors. Okay, so 3x minus 4 could equal 0, or x plus 11 equals 0. So you got times 3 and minus 4, so you plus 4. That takes you to 4. Then you divide 4 by 3. I don't want to see that. Second PRB, 1 1/3. And over here, minus 11, minus 11. 0 minus 11 is negative 11. Okay. Okay, we're not doing the next one. Okay, next problem. I have 3x to the second power plus 4 equals negative 4x plus 8. So you have two answers for x, because you have x to the second, and you've also got x. So you have to apply your factoring properties. But to imply that, we need a 0 here, okay? So we have two things we need to get rid of by adding or subtracting. We take out the negative 4x with a plus 4x. That had x. Do I have x over? Remember, x second isn't the same as x. You don't, so you hang that out. Then you also have to take out your positive 8 by minusing it. Now, 8's a constant. It doesn't have a variable, and that can go with the positive 4. So now you put the equal 0 yourself, and you make your slot starting with x second. You have x, and you got a couple constants that need to be combined. Okay. So x second is 3. X, you're going to have 4. And the constant, you're going to take 4 minus 8. Okay, negative 4. Okay, so I see 3 terms on that side. So since I see 3 terms, I'm going back to my GCF table. It's just the same as the other stuff. Okay, so I do not have a variable. I do not have the negative. 3 and 4, those are only in the first row. So having a GCF of 1 means I don't do it. Okay, ABC. So positive 3 times negative 4, that's negative 12. So that's a mismatch again. So positive, negative. You are adding to try to get to the B, which is positive 4. Okay. So start dividing. 1 and 12, no. 12 divided by 2 is 6. Now if you add those, that's negative 4. So I stop dividing to make it into a positive 4. You just make both the signs opposite. Okay, so you got x to the second with the coefficient of the x second being a 3. Okay. So you got minus 2 plus 6. So you got x, and then 3 and 3. Now please simplify if possible by dividing. 3 and 2 are only in row 1, so you can divide by 1, but it will really just stay the same. You can't get rid of the 3. You can only get rid of the 1 if it's in front. 3 and 6, I believe that's in third row, so we need to simplify that by dividing it by 3. I don't care if you get the same answer if you don't divide. I want it divided. You can take the 1 off the x now. X plus 2 equals 0. So F1, F2. Okay, so you got times 3 minus 2. You got to add 2. That's 2. And divide by 3. 2 divided by 3 is a decimal. So second PRB means it's back to 2/3. Okay, then over here, minus 2, 0 minus 2 is negative 2. Okay, next problem. 3x to the third power plus 30x to the second power minus 33x equals 0. Now there are 3 answers because you have x to the third. So you have x third, you have x second, and you have x. So obviously we're going to have to factor because none of those can go together. So you're set. Now how many terms you got? You got 3 again. So GCF table. and then we start factoring. Now the GCF, we are definitely going to put an X there. We are not going to put the negative. 3, 30, and 33. There's 3, there's 30, 33, so it'd be 3. So now you go up and divide by 3x. So when dividing, you got to divide the numbers, you got to divide the variables. So 3 divided by 3 is 1. X third divided by x. It's 3x's divided by an x. So that will leave me with x to the second on the 1. Then 30 divided by 3 is 10, and then you got to divide the x to the second by the x. So you will still have an x after your 10. The negative 33 divided by 3 is negative 11, and those cancel like always, okay? That's why you do that x. Now you place the GCF right here, and now your ABC comes from the second parentheses. So 1 times negative 11 is negative 11, okay? So that's a mismatch. Wish I'd get a match, but I don't think I'm going to. And you have to add to try to get to your B, which is positive 10. Okay. So 1 and 11. Right there, that's negative 10, so I can stop dividing. I just need a positive 10, so it'll be plus 11 minus 1. Now what's your A? It's the x second is the A, okay, and it's 1. So it ought to be pretty easy to simplify with a 1 there, minus a 1 plus 11. Then x, and then 1, 1. Okay, 1 and 1 would just be 1. So you can divide by 1, but you remember to take that off, so it's x minus 1. 1 and 11 is also 1. So divide by 1 if you want, but it still just stays the same. So that's already in simplest form. Okay, so you have 3 parentheses, and all of them have x. Okay. So they all get F labels, and we set them each equal to 0. 3x equals 0, x minus 1 equals 0, x plus 11 equals 0. So we got times 3, so you need to divide by 3, and that's 0. You have minus 1, you plus 1, and that's 1. You have plus 11, that's minus 11, and you have negative 11. Okay. Those are your 3 answers. Okay, last 2 equations and we get into the story problems. X to the third power minus 121x equals 0. So again, with those third power x's, you need 3 answers instead of 2. So you have x to the third. You don't have x to the second, but you do have x to the first, so you still need to apply your factoring rules. Okay, you're set. So how many terms we got over here? Now there's just 2 terms. So look up what you do on 2 terms. That's the GCF and then the DOPS. So we will not be teeing this. Okay, so do you have an X on the end? Yes, you do. Do you have a negative in front? No, you don't. 1 and 121 would be 1, but it's 1x, so we need to do it, okay? So 1 divided by 1 is 1, but more importantly, the x to the third divided by x, that gives me 2 x's, so x to the second. Then negative 121 divided by 1 is negative 121, so minus 121. The x divided by x cancels out. Do not put x on the 121. So you take that GCF, bring it over. Now you see if you have a difference of perfect squares. If your x has a 1 in front, you don't have to deal with it. Well, x to the second's a perfect square because that's x times x. Now look down this row of diagonal numbers. 121's here. That's 11 times 11. So you bet that's a DOPS. So you go x, x, not x, x. That makes no sense. Then the 11 and the 11. So you don't put that. You want to go down here. So x plus 11, x minus 11. F1, F2, F3. So 1x could equal 0. Take the 1 off the x, actually. Okay. X plus 11 equals 0. X minus 11 equals 0. So this is already solved for 0. Then you minus 11, and you get negative 11. Then you plus 11, and you get positive 11. Okay. X to the third power minus 11x to the second power minus 9x plus 99 equals 0. Always know how many answers. You have x to the third, so that's 3 answers. Now what else do you have? You have x to the second, and you have x. So you're factoring. So you're set, but now I've got, put a 1 in front there, you've got 4 terms. So 4 terms, you set up your, it's a quadnomial, you set up your grouping, okay? Just like what I have here. Remember, this parentheses goes into adopts. So, make a box, you really don't have to put a box around it if you don't want to. Grouping. So you put a parentheses plus a parentheses. Then the same thing with little GCF lines out front. And then really you don't need that line there. Just make a little parentheses and a bigger parentheses. And you need to then see if that goes down into adopts, the bigger of the two. Okay, so what I do is I put 1x to the third minus 11x to the second. Then we put the negative 9x with the positive 99. So GCFs. You have a variable on the back end, x second. You don't have a negative in the front. 1 and 11 would be a 1. Okay. Then there's no variable there. There is a negative, so you need to put a negative at the beginning of your slot. Then 9 and 99. Here's 9, here's 99, so it'd be 9. Okay, now you go up and divide. 1x to the second, 1x to the second, and then here I'm dividing by negative 9. Okay, so 1 divided by 1 is 1. X third divided by x second. You would still have an x. Negative 11 divided by 1 is negative 11. Now since it's x second divided by x second, they cancel completely, so don't put that there. That's going to be 1. The x would stay there, and this is negative 11. So we got the parentheses to match, so then that expression 1x minus 11 goes out here. 1x minus 11. Cross those out, and then you have 1x to the second power minus 9. Okay, now the 1x minus 11, take the 1 off, and you got x minus 11. Now, this adopts here. Well, we take the 1 off, it's a minus, and that's x times x, and 9 is 3 times 3. So you bet, x, 3, 3. So you've got x plus 3 and x minus 3. And then F1, F2, and F3. So x minus 11 equals 0, x plus 3 equals 0, x minus 3 equals 0. So you plus 11, that's 11. You minus 3, and that's negative 3. Then you plus 3, and that's positive 3. Okay, story problems. A missile is shot close to the ground with a velocity of 128 feet per second. After how many seconds does it hit its ground target? So they're talking about feet and seconds. So seconds is x, feet is y, time's always x. And the feet per second is 128 times x. But we're not going to make a table because it goes up and goes down. And then it forms that parabola shape. Okay, so before the 128 I got nothing, so 0 feet, and then it's going to land at 0 feet. Now we do our equation. These always make x to the second equations. Okay, so gravity goes here. That's not in the problem. You got to know that that's negative 16. Feet per second goes here. Now, this right here, the beginning amount goes here, but since it's 0, I get rid of it. Now this 0 feet here replaces the y variable. So y's out, 0's in. So write that so it looks better. Okay, now I'm solving for x. X has two answers. You have an x to the second and you have an x. So again, you're factoring. So you're set with your 0, make kind of a line there. And you have two terms, okay? You do not have three. So two terms is GCF, DOPS. Okay. DOPS doesn't need to be a real big box. Okay, so we do have an x variable on the back end. We have a negative in front. And then 16 and 128. So let's look at 16. Oh, there's 128, so it's negative 16x. So I wrap that up, and I divide by negative 16x. So negative 16 divided by negative 16 is 1, then x second divided by x. That leaves you with x. Then 128 divided by negative 16 is negative 8. And then x divided by x cancels. Do not put an x on that last term. Alright, so I put the GCF over here. And then I see if this is a difference of perfect squares. Well, you got a minus. The 1 you can ditch. Now, just x without a second power or an even power can't be a perfect square. So you write no. So that means you're putting that x minus 8 right alongside your negative 16x. F1, F2. So negative 16x equals 0, x minus 8 equals 0. So you divide by negative 16, and that would be 0 for your first answer. Then you would add 8, and that would be 8 for your second. Now you want to put the higher answer over there, 8 seconds. Okay, next problem. You throw a ball into the air with an initial velocity of 46 feet per second. The ball leaves your hand when it's 6 feet above the ground. After how many seconds does the ball land on the ground? So you got feet and seconds. Seconds is x, feet is y. Feet per second is 46. I messed this problem up too, I apologize. The 6 feet comes before the 46 feet per second, I'm sorry. Okay. So it goes up and down, so it's a parabola. Now, that 6 feet I should have wrote in the problem before the 46. That's my fault, not yours. So 6 feet. And we land down here at 0 feet. So now we format the equation. So gravity, negative 16. 46 is your x. We can't get rid of this because it would be 6 feet. And then 0 feet, feet is y, so 0 goes in for y. So we have negative 16x to the second power plus 46x plus 6 equals 0. Alright, so you have two answers because you have x to the second. The x highest power tells you how many answers. You got x second and you got x. So you're using your factor properties. So you are set. On the other side, you have three terms, GCF table. Okay, I do not have an x. I do have a negative. 16, 46, and 6, okay? Nope. Nope. 4 row. Nope. How about the 2 row? Yeah, 2. So negative 2, but not without the x. You're not dividing the x. So it's positive 8. Now you're not dividing the x to the second. That will stay x to the second. 46 divided by negative 2 is negative 23. You're not dividing the x, so it stays. And then you have negative 3. So kick negative 2, sorry, butt over there. And then the trinomial ends up being 8, negative 23, negative 3. So 8 times negative 3 is negative 24. Okay, so it's a mismatch. And you're dealing with a positive and a negative. And you are adding to try to make your b, which is negative 23. 1 and 24, right there you got it. Okay, so a is your x second, and the x second's 8. So you put the plus 1, the minus 24. So you go x and place the 8 in front. 8 and 1's already in simplest form. You can divide by 1 if you want, but it really just stays the same. Okay, 8 and 24. If you look at 8, those are both in 8's row. So it's going to be 1x minus 3. Okay, take the 1 off. You don't need it. Now, people are going to wonder, what do I do with this? Nothing. It doesn't have x. Cross it off. So 8x plus 1 could equal 0, or x minus 3 could equal 0. So you have times 8 plus 1, so you minus 1. Takes you to negative 1. Then you divide by 8. Negative 1 divided by 8 decimals. Second PRB would be negative 1/8. So that's the first of my 2 solutions to the actual equation. And then plus 3 plus 3. X is 3. Okay, 3 is the answer you put. Okay, last problem finally. Find the shaded region's area. So here's the shaded region. You have 7 times x. You got to find the x value if you're going to find the area for that. So when dealing with the shape, you want to make a little 2 columns, one very wide, and then one here for the scratch work. Okay, now we focus on the area that we do have. Okay, so we make the length width parentheses equals area. This is length, this is width. So my area is 80. Okay, the length is x plus 2. The width, if you just look straight across, if that's x over there, it's going to be x over here. Okay, now you need to multiply this out. Okay, you can't get rid of the 80 till you multiply it out. So you got these 2 terms. You take 1x times 1x, and then 2 times 1x. So that's 1 and then x to the second. That's 2 and then x. So we just have x second and x, 1 and 2. So equals 80, and I put 1x to the second power plus 2x. Now I can solve it. It's like a regular problem. So there are 2 answers. You have x to the second and you have x, so you have to factor. Okay, so you got to get to your 0. So you minus 80. Now 80 doesn't go with either one of these, so I put minus 80 on the back end. Got x, got the constant, equals 0. So x second, 1. X, you got 2. Negative 80, you got 3. Okay, so you see the 3 terms, GCF table. Okay, do you have an x on the last term? No. Do you have a negative on the first term? No. 1, 2, and 80 is just 1. If 1's the smallest number, it's 1, so we don't do it. 1 times negative 80 is negative 80. so that's a mismatch. Positive, negative. You're adding to get positive 2. So start dividing. 1 and 80, no. Divide by 2, you get 40, nope. 80 divided by 3 is a decimal, so you skip that. 80 divided by 4 is 20. Nope. 5 and 16. Nope. 6 a decimal. 7's a decimal. 8 and 10. Okay. Now 8 plus negative 10 is negative 2. Okay. But I need positive 2. So I go plus, negative, and I'm good. So your x to the second, there it is. It's multiplied by 1. Minus 8 plus 10. And then you go xx, 1, 1. 1 and 8 is only divided by 1. You can do it or just leave it because that's in simplest form. So you have x minus 8. Remember, I didn't do the GCF. And then x plus 10. Okay, you can divide by 1. 1x plus 10 be x plus 10. So x minus 8 could equal 0, or x plus 10 could equal 0. So at plus 8, you get 8. Then you minus 10, you get negative 10. Okay, you take your positive answer to the top, and 7 times 8 is 56.